Hello everyone, welcome to the WDShow. My name is Haz, this is Craig. We have been playing on Destiny for 2 weeks and we've put in about 150 hours, maybe more, not really too sure, we haven't timed it. But we've played a lot and we've made a substantial amount of progress into the game and we think we've done enough to review it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first things first, Destiny is an FPS, MMO, RPG, kind of crossbreed of games, but mainly an FPS. It's a cross-generation platform gaming game, whatever.
Yeah, so it's available on PS3, Xbox 360, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. We've been playing it on the PlayStation 4.
At the moment, this is the current state the game has been released in. This is not the future patches which is going to be released. It's just a review of what's happened now with it, with the massive budget it had behind it and with the massive hype it had behind it. So what was your first impressions of it, Craig?
Yeah, so my first impressions, I'll be honest, I dislike Halo immensely. So obviously with Bungie being the company that made Halo, I did have some reservations, shall we say, but I think, you know, I've given it a good shot. You know, and I actually quite like it. You know, I think Destiny has a lot of positive features to it. I mean, what were your thoughts like when you first played?
I felt a bit kind of like betrayed. Not betrayed. I don't know what the word is, but however,
Betrayed. That's a bit strong.
No, I really looked into this and I was like, this is going to be kind of more like a really serious MMO version of Borderlands.
Yeah.
We are avid Borderlands fans and you'll find that out over the next few weeks. However, that's what it felt like to me. It felt like it was going to be a massive MMO and it was going to be a huge RPG, and I got sucked into that a lot. And I got the game and it wasn't what I expected it to be. So let's get into it. Craig, what's Destiny? What's it about?
Okay, so Destiny in its essence is set in the future. It's set on Earth, and you're basically what's referred to as a guardian. So you're basically a soldier, really, is the best way to describe it. And you're basically brought back to life by a little robot called Ghost. Ghost itself is never really explained. Essentially, the world it's set in is on Earth. This being called the Traveller has come to Earth, which is basically, for all intents and purposes, a big white version of Death Star. It's basically a big white sphere that's appeared on Earth. Is it a robot? Is it an organic being? No one knows.
I think it's a snowball.
Okay,
Giant snowball.
That's good. I like that. It's basically just floating kind of within the Earth's atmosphere. It's never really explained whether Bungie will actually bother to let us know what the Traveller is. Remains to be seen.
Well,
again,
in game, I think you can actually look online and find out what it is by the Grimoire cards, but we'll get into that a bit later.
Yeah, so the Traveller basically granted humanity a lot of powers, and from that, humanity spread forth into the galaxy. So we terraformed Venus and Mars, set up cities in there, and humankind was living perfectly fine. But along with the Traveller came this thing called the Darkness. Now again, the Darkness isn't really explained, and the more you play the game, the more questions you'll get instead of answers.
Yeah.
But that being said, the Darkness, we can assume it comes in the form of various different enemy types. So there's the fallen enemies, there's the hive enemy, there's another enemy type called the Vex, which is essentially the main kind of enemy throughout there. And at the very end of the game, there's the Cabal as well, which habitat or are the creatures on Mars. So anyway, you're basically throughout the story, you're set a series of missions which aren't really explained by characters that aren't really developed to do things which you don't really care about because you spend almost the entirety of it shooting stuff in the face.
And this review is going to cover the good and bad points of the game. The whole point of this review is because a lot of people are deciding if they want to buy the game or if they don't. So these are our good and bad points with an analysis at the end and of what we actually think of Destiny.
I think one of the things that works really well with Destiny is the fact you do have these different planets, and they do feel very different from one another. So you start off on Earth, which is set in Old Russia. So if anyone's played the alpha or the beta, this is where it's set, and it's somewhere you'll be very familiar with. Again, you know, it feels you can definitely feel that the Earth has been damaged. You know, it basically feels like Earth has been left for about 100 years, and you've only just trying to reclaim the land. So there's a lot of planes that are rusted up on there. There's a really good amount of detail, and I think there's a lot of thought has gone into structuring the levels, and just different areas of the planet do feel different enough from each other.
Yeah, the planets are very vast. They have a lot of exploration aside from the missions themselves as well. There's parts which you don't actually visit on the missions, which I thought was a nice thing to the game because you still can explore outside of it. Even though there wasn't that much to explore, I still think there was just enough to keep me occupied for an hour or two on the solo play.
I mean, one thing I thought that was weird about the world is there's no maps.
Yeah.
So there's literally no maps. So it's very hard when you're talking to people online. Say, oh, come out to this place. Check out this cave for this loot. It's really hard to actually find where they're talking about. But you do get familiar with them, and the maps, even though they're pretty big, they're small enough that you kind of learn your way around eventually. And once you've done all the missions, you kind of remember your route through places. So it's not too bad.
You would definitely get familiar with the maps. One of the negative points, which we will go into later, is you do go across these maps a lot.
Absolutely.
I think we've been on some of them over 100 times quite easily now. That you do traverse across them a lot of the time.
So I mean, one of the things, the main focus of the game is shooting stuff. So if you're a Call of Duty fan, Battlefield, any first-person shooter really, this is going to be right in your ball game, and that includes obviously Halo fans. The less said about you guys, the better. But.
Yeah, you'll feel just at home about you'll feel like you're at home playing an FPS game. It is primarily an FPS game. Yeah. It is good. The gunplay and it's so satisfying. All the shooting, everything's great. The whole it's got excellent gunplay in it. Really well.
Yeah, I mean it's got realistic recoil, reload speeds. I would say they're fairly realistic as well. And the guns feel substantial, so it's not like a Call of Duty game where you can jump up in the air, spin around 3 times, and then do a headshot with a sniper rifle. It's not like that. I mean, yes, you can double jump, and if you level up, I think it's the Warlock character correctly, you can triple jump. Or is it the Hunter?
Oh no, it's the Hunter.
It's the Hunter. Okay.
We haven't actually played as we played as a Warlock a little bit, but we've maxed out the Titan and the Hunter, the two which we've been playing as. The Hunter can triple jump. Yeah, there is the maneuverability. Is that how I'm going to say it? The maneuver.
Yeah, you can traverse the levels. I mean, there's a lot of vertical exploration on this, so it's not just necessarily a ground game. And having that double jump does add another level to that. But again, once you're up in the air, you really are a floating target for the enemies. Luckily, some of them aren't as good at aiming as others, so it's sometimes it's a bit of a blessing.
Yeah. One of our favourite bits of this game is the meleeing. The melee attacks on this are outstanding. They're the best bit of the game. You can have so much fun. You actually sometimes kill yourself trying to go in and melee people all the time.
It's just that thud sound. It's boom. It's just an amazing sound, and it's just very, very satisfying to do. I mean, in fact, I've actually leveled up my Titan character to take more damage, specifically so I can chain melee kill the kind of lower level enemies, and it's pretty fun. I'm not gonna lie.
It's fun for 100 hours.
Yeah.
But that brings us on to another point. The sound of this game is incredible. The soundtrack, we'll get to that in a second, but the sound design of the game itself is fantastic.
Oh yeah, it does feel substantial. Just from the sound, let alone from the great gunplay mechanics.
You've got the really deep bass on the machine guns, and the actual equalisation of the sound is really well thought out.
Yeah, and it might be, and I think that's something that a lot of people won't necessarily pick up on. But again, it's these little things and it's all these little pieces of detail that really kind of enhance the experience.
The soundtrack to this game, guys, is outstanding. It was one of the best soundtracks I've heard in a game for a long time. It was done by Michael Salvatore, I think, and then some other people. I know Paul McCartney helped out on one of the tracks towards the end, or it was all written by him, I'm not too sure, but the orchestral scores are mind-blowing. There's points of the game where I was playing and I actually didn't want the fight to end because I was listening to the music so much. The last battle in particular has a fantastic score. It has a really tremendous orchestral score. It's so good, and it actually took away from the battle to me. It kind of a negative thing. I wasn't really focused on the game. I was focused on the music. But I guess that's a good thing.
It's I think it's one of these things where the music really is kind of in the background most of the time, and the fact that took the main kind of main focus. of that, I think was a really good thing. I mean, the thing that did irritate me a little bit was the use of flutes on the last boss. When you get there, listen for the flutes, because you've got this big serious.
He doesn't like flutes.
It's not that, no. It's because big serious scores, a lot of brass, there's a lot of drama, and then this kind of dainty little flute tune, and it kind of trivialised the matter for me. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, it works in an orchestral score. However, in that particular moment, in the final boss, let's say, it didn't feel completely in place when it should have. So, this game has an amazing amount of challenge for an FPS game. With Call of Duty games, you can normally run through them quite simply. I know you can get harder difficulties, but there's not a set difficulty for this game. There's obviously set levels for each strike. That's what they're called when you join up a team and play. But the challenge to this game is hard. There are some hard bits to this game which we actually were stumped on, and we left a couple of missions because of it.
Yeah, I mean, but by no means is that a bad thing. I think one of the criticisms I personally have of many games, next gen and kind of previous generation as well, was that they were getting a bit too easy. You would literally run through a game and then you're on hard mode, and then you'd have to unlock the very hard mode, which really is probably what the game should have been set to in the first place. But this one, no, there is a lot of challenge to it as well. I mean, yeah, if you get level 20 something and you're going back and playing level 8 missions, yeah, the challenge isn't really going to be there. But yeah, it really does kind of force co-op play, and that is one of the cornerstones of this game. Is the co-op play.
It's a negative and positive thing, and we will get into that in a little bit.
So one of the things, this is a very small thing, but it's something that I think is actually quite good, and I don't know many games that have really done this, which is that the loading screens in Destiny are pretty long for certain bits.
That's an understatement.
We may well show you some examples to give you a bit of a tea or a loo break. But one of the things that is good though is that when you're in these, you can go through the inventory of your character. So you're not stumped at looking at this boring loading screen for 2 minutes, and literally we mean 2 minutes.
We was playing on a PvP game earlier, and it took 2 minutes 20 seconds to find the players and get in the game. I'm a Call of Duty fan, so I play a lot of multiplayer Call of Duty, and it's quite quick getting into a game. You join a lobby and it shows you the players, and there you go, you're in. It takes probably about 20-30 seconds, and also you pick the map and also can customise the loadout and stuff. But this takes 2 minutes 20 seconds staring at your ship in space flying, and that brings on some negative things later on. However, the only good thing this does here is that you can actually access your inventory.
Yeah,
definitely.
So you can look through your loadout, choose your weapons, change your gear, and you can also have a look at your skill tree, and you can always change your skill tree, which is one of the many positives of the game, is that you do have these kind of branching skill trees. However, it's not like something like Borderlands where you have to necessarily put kind of skill points into certain trees and you'll never max everything out. You will be able to max everything out on your skill tree, but it forces you to choose between certain things depending on your type of gameplay, which is good. So it's adequate time to do that, but at the same time, if you've got a loadout that's already working for you and you know exactly what you're doing moving into it, the loading times do feel a little bit tedious at best. But again, saying that, once you're actually in the level, apart from occasionally where you're moving between tile sets, there'll be a little loading screen.
There's little phrases where there might be a loading screen, and these can actually last up to about 20 seconds. And when everyone's in a gunplay battle, it can be quite tricky to if you get one of these loading screens. I think it's all down to your internet connection. I'm not too sure on that. However, it can interrupt your gameplay. It's not a vital thing, because it's only happened to me once or twice.
Yeah, it's not gonna ruin your game experience. But generally speaking, once you're in a map, so on a patrol mission or on a strike mission, once it's loaded until you've completed it, and that's a good thing. I think there's too many games where you'll do something, you'll have a loading screen for like 30 seconds. You play 5 minutes and there's another 30-second loading screen. And for some people that's fine. I prefer to be immersed in the world, and really for the MMO and the RPG aspects of the game, you do need to be immersed in that. And I think having that 2 minutes to load up initially, and then having like half an hour, 45 minutes of uninterrupted gameplay. To me, that's actually I would say worth it. I think it's a bit of a balance.
It's the home hub. There's a hub in the game called the Tower, which you go to upgrade your equipment, to buy new equipment, to kind of progress through the game, and you have to go here. You can't not go there, and you'll see why in some of the videos. However, this is where the loading time really does take the long time, and I think it's because it's trying to link you up with other players. I think because of cross-generation as well, it's trying to link up to all these different servers, and it can take a minute and a half, 2 minutes just to load up this hub town, which is actually really small. So
yeah,
that's the one of the negative points of it.
So once you go into orbit, which you do from the tower, you basically then get set with choosing which planet first of all that you go on to. In the planet there are various different missions, and within the missions there's various different skill settings that you can choose. So if you're level 20, you may want to try a level 22 or a level 24 mission to give yourself some extra challenge. However, if you're just doing that to pick up an item at the end, or there's something that you've maybe missed, or you want to just to replay the story to refresh your memory, you can play at a lower setting as well, if you just wanted a quick run through.
You can get through this story very shortly as well. It's a very short story. I mean, I think if you just try and rush through the story, no side missions, you might struggle a little bit with the final bosses, but I think you can get through the game in about 6 or 7 hours. It's a short game.
I mean,
story-wise.
If that was all that there was to it, and it was just designed as a solo campaign, I would agree. However, there is so much more to Destiny than that, and if you're doing every mission, I think you're looking at least 15 hours.
Yeah.
And that's if you don't get stumped on any of the bosses. And we did. I think what was it? The first sub boss on Earth, the spider tank.
Yeah, that was quite tricky.
Yeah, we got stumped. We got stumped on that for a fair while, and there was 3 of us as well. So we had a full fire team for that, and we got stumped on that. But again, it was good because the challenge was there, and it was something that we all kind of strive towards, and it actually made you feel like actually our effort was worth something at the end.
Yeah, the RPG elements of this game are good enough for me as a RPG fan. But as an MMO RPG fan, they're not. There's the customization of your characters. It seems like all of them are almost the same, but they just do the things a little bit differently, like how they throw the grenade or what type of grenade. There's not a lot of substantial difference between each one.
Yeah, and I think every character has basically a special move that they can use. And each character has 2 sets of skills that they can use, and you basically have to choose kind of which one you're leveling up at a time. So there's basically 2 subsets of skills, which you can max out both of, but you can never play. You can never kind of choose bits of one skill tree and bits of another skill. You literally, it's either in the case of a Titan, a striker or a defender. And that's literally it. There's nothing else to that.
So a tank or DPS if you're into MMOs.
Yeah. So the problem I have with that though is that it really limits the type of player that you can be.
Yeah.
Because you have to make a conscious decision before the level starts. What type of player I'm being. Now, I'm not saying that you can't pause the game and change that midway through, but for me it does ruin the flow and the pace of the gameplay.
You can't pause the game, because it is an MMO. If you pause your game when you're in battle to change something, it's not going to work. People will still attack you. That's one thing which did interfere with the gameplay, I think, because there was some bits I wanted to change. Sometimes I wanted to change to more of a stealth style hunter, and I couldn't because I was already in this massive boss battle.
Yeah, and again, that might just be an issue with how we played it. I mean, you might want to kind of wait if you know that there's a fight coming up, or this is an area where enemies spawn. You are able to wait, before you head in and kind of change everything.
What I really did enjoy about this game are the sparrows. The sparrows are a transportable vehicle which you use in the game.
Yeah, essentially they're a hover bike. We're not going to kind of sugarcoat it too much. But they're good fun. The handling on them is actually really good. Apart from sometimes where you go up the side of a cliff and it decides to do a barrel roll.
Yeah, it could be a bit weird how the mechanics of trying to barrel roll. You
Yeah.
can't barrel roll. Well, you probably could if you.
Yeah, we need a stunt sparrow. Bungie, sort me out a stunt sparrow, and I will be happy.
There is a clip here which we will show you now where I try to do this flip, and it kind of goes alright, and that's probably the most you can do on it.
But you don't get stunt bonus, you don't get extra boost for it. It's certainly not Mario Kart.
You should level up your sparrow, like.
Yeah, this is it. The sparrows are great. The sound for the sparrows is amazing. Like if they make a hover bike in the future that doesn't sound like this, however good it is, I'm going to be disappointed. The sound for the sparrows is something else. But again, you know, the game could have opened up a bit more and include maybe some sparrow racing or some sparrow customization. There's different types of sparrow that you can get, but it's very, very difficult.
Limited, yeah, and it's really limited to what they do. There are different vehicles in the game, but they're rarely used in any way. There's another one called the Pike, I think it is, and it's got guns on front. And there's another one as well.
Yeah, there's an Interceptor, which is basically it's a very slow-moving kind of. It's but they're all basically hover bikes.
You don't use them. You rarely use them, and you rarely use your Sparrow.
I can name possibly 2 missions.
Yeah, 2 missions
that you definitely use them for. I mean, your Sparrow you can use almost any time, except for when you're in either kind of busy areas, so where there's a lot of kind of rocks and stuff around you, or interior areas. Although if you spawn your Sparrow in an open area, you can ride it through buildings, which is quite fun when you've got a group of 50 enemies all shooting at you and you just casually kind of blitz through them, which is quite fun.
Yeah. That's our good points of the game. There are obviously other good points, but we're going to try to keep this review as small as we can. It's a massive game, so we're trying to cover as much as possible. But now we're going to go into the bad points. With every game, there's always going to be bad points, and Destiny was a huge game, very ambitious, and I was really looking forward to it. And there are some things which really let it down. I think there was.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of this is the whole Watch Dogs thing, where a game is you see this amazing kind of wow, this is what we can do, has this massive budget behind it, so you're thinking we're going to get all of this, and it just doesn't live up to the hype. Not to say that it isn't a good game, but it does have massive shortfallings, and I think part of this is really the fact that Destiny itself doesn't seem to have an identity as a game. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it a first-person shooter? Is it an RPG? Is it an MMO? And I think for me, it's an FPS. It's every aspect about it. I mean, the thing you spend most doing this game is shooting enemies in the face.
Yeah.
Or the foot, if you're not as accurate. But generally, that is what you spend 90% of the game doing. And for me, it's kind of like, if it wants to be an RPG or if it wants to be an MMO, include more of those aspects.
Yeah, the customization of the level of customization of the characters just isn't enough. One of the main issues with this game is the story, I think. That's where I lost it a little bit. It kind of started to feel like all it was just shooting things, because there was no reasoning behind what we was doing. There was no reason to be in all these different planets and shooting these bosses, shooting these certain people. Who's the good guy, who's the bad? For example, you get resurrected by this ghost, which is working for the Traveller. I'm pretty sure that's the story, essentially.
Yeah.
But why was you resurrected? Why was you dead? I don't understand any of it. Like, why were you there? Why are you being resurrected? Yeah. There was no explanation. And what's a ghost?
The story is by far and away the biggest letdown for me. I wanted to be immersed. I wanted this massive story, epic scale. And you do get the scale, but the story is very weak and very tenuous. The concept of it's great, this being has come to grant humanity these powers, but it's also brought darkness, you have to fight the darkness. It sounds great, but that's about as much of it that is explained in the game. And that's a really big letdown for me, because I want to care about the characters. The Guardians never really explained why they've been brought back, who's brought them back. The Traveller's never explained. You never find out what the Traveller is, why the Traveller is there. You never have any actual interaction. You never actually go to the Traveller. The Traveller is just in the distance. The Traveller, for all extents and purposes, may as well not exist.
Yeah, it may as well just be an entity which is spoken about, but it's not actually there. The synopsis of this game on paper is a good synopsis. It's a good introduction, a whole new world which you can have. However, like Craig said, it's not explained, and there's nothing which kind of pulls you into that. You don't care about anything what's going on.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was just running around shooting things because it was fun. Like we've said, the gunplay and everything, it was fantastic. And doing it with a friend is much better. But it's the story.
Yeah, and I think on top of that as well, it's the lack of characters. The only characters you have any interaction with, minus one character who again isn't explained, is within the tower. Now, the tower itself is absolutely fine as a trading post, but there is no other interaction with characters other than trading. And that to me poses a really big problem, because you only learn about the actual main character through interaction with other characters, but there isn't any.
No.
So you're basically an empty vessel who is sent on missions to shoot stuff.
Yeah, basically that's all it is. You kind of use it as a puppet almost, this game. You're just a puppet, essentially. The ghost, who is your travelling companion, he explains things through kind of like a monologue through the game.
Yeah.
Explains what's going on. However, he doesn't really explain things. He tries to... The voice of the ghost is voiced by Peter Dinklage out of Game of Thrones, and... in all honesty, he doesn't deliver his lines that well at all. But a fantastic actor.
But I also think the part of that is that the script is terrible. You've woken the hive! And also, if anyone who played the Baser, where he was waffling on about a wizard from the moon, it doesn't get any better, really, throughout the game, all the way up into the end boss.
It falls quite flat on quite a lot of levels with the scripting. There's moments where they're trying to be funny, like little comedy sections, but it's really not, and it's so out of place. And the scripting of it is... the scripting and story is just lost. It feels like it shouldn't even be in this game.
So Bungie have spent 500 million on this game. That is a huge amount of money for any company manufacturing anything.
Yeah.
And you couldn't afford a scriptwriter? I mean, seriously? I mean, Doom 3, which is going back quite a way, they hired sci-fi writers to write the story, and yeah, I mean, you were shooting stuff in the face for most of it, but at least there was kind of a plot, and you kind of felt that you were involved in that.
Yeah. I mean, the principle of the game, I can see they had this wide universe which they really wanted to explore. By the way, there's no exploration whatever in this universe. You don't fly any ships, which we'll get to in a second. It's a whole world, but it feels like it's kind of like a painting. You're just looking at it. You don't get to really delve into the story at all. And
that's another big thing. But one of the main problems of the game is that you don't interact with any characters.
Yeah.
The only real interaction you actually have as the main character in the game is really with two people, which is the ghosts, which basically delivers monologues which you don't really respond to, or there's the voice of the traveller who is within the tower, who again delivers you a monologue, and you just kind of nod along and go, okay, yep, okay, so if you say I've got to go and shoot these things, great, let's do that. And that's a big problem, because in an MMO or an RPG, you've got all these characters who aren't even characters who have any bearing on the story, but you can talk to them and you can get information from them which will delve into the lore of the world. So something like Skyrim, for example, where you've got NPCs, as far as the eye can see. There are no NPCs in this game. The only NPCs...
No, I don't think there actually is anyone who you genuinely can go and talk to. There's only traders. Only traders and... Yeah, no,
actually, and the two robots, or I think three robots, who will show you a map of the tower, and that is it.
Yeah.
So if you're on Venus, if you're on Mars, if you're on the Moon, there are literally, if you see anyone that isn't currently in your fire squad, it's almost certainly going to be an enemy, because there are no NPCs.
No, it will be an enemy. There's no way.
Yeah,
it's an enemy.
Absolutely, and that really detracts from the world. It really makes the world feel a whole lot smaller than it could be, and that is a big letdown. Now, on patrol missions, which we'll show you now, you can basically wander around and pick up missions randomly, which is a really good way if you wanted to explore the actual whole level. So, say for example, the whole moon, as we're showing you now. The problem with that is that you don't actually pick these missions up from anyone. They're basically just flashing green beacons. You'll get a pre-recorded message, and once you've completed it, you don't hand the mission in to anyone. Your ghost says, "Oh, I'll take care of that."
Yeah, basically your actions have no impact whatsoever on this world which is changing. You just go through the motions, and there's, for example, one of the missions on the moon or something, one of the patrol missions, they're basically the same three missions. It's either go kill something, collect something or scan an environment. There's the mission variation on this game is dreadful. 100%. It's not.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not into first-person shooters, do not buy this game. At its current state, whether they change it or not, whether they bring in more RPG elements, if you don't like shooting stuff, this is not the game for you.
Yeah.
That being said, we have mentioned that the shooting mechanics are very good. It's very good fun, but it will wear thin, and that is something that we definitely notice. I think like I said, we're about the 150-hour mark on it, and we have now started to get quite bored of the missions because it's just the same.
Yeah. Basically, the level cap of this game is level 20. That for an MMO straight away is a warning sign to me. I'm a massive fan of MMOs, World of Warcraft, EverQuest, loads of them. I've really played on them all, and I've hit the level caps, and they take a while to get to. We hit the level cap 20, I think, in a day.
Yeah, it was. If it wasn't a day, it wasn't far off at all.
And I know people say, yeah, but you get equipment which raises your level. Yeah, that's all well and said, but is that what they're planning on doing for the next 10 years? They're never going to raise this level cap. I'm not really sure how they're going to progress the level system.
Yeah. So the way the leveling up works is you've got your first 20 levels, which work in just in the same way as every other game. You get experience points by killing enemies and completing missions, and from that you will level up. Now, once you reach level 20, you can increase your level, but a light level. So armor that you have will have a certain amount of light attached to it if it's a good enough set of armor. So you're looking for rare or legendary or even exotic armor are the ones which at the moment carry light. And once you level up your armor, you then get more light, which then levels you up. I think we're both level 27 at the moment.
Yeah, quite high for it.
And the level cap for light levels is also level 30. Now, what Bungie have openly stated is that they want everyone to reach the level cap quickly, so that you haven't got people at level, say for example 60 and people at level 12 who then can't play together. And whilst that's a good idea in theory, the problem with that is it then feels very stunted. So once you've reached that level cap, it becomes a massive grind to get the resources to get anywhere near to getting your level up. And once you've got your level up, there's no bonus for doing that. You don't get additional skills, you don't get rewards, you can't then suddenly use weapons which are level 28 if we leveled up, for example, because there are none. Everything, all the equipment stops at level 20. Which begs the point, what's the point?
Yeah, there's no point of actually getting these light levels. They don't actually change anything. I think it's more of a kind of showing off technique to go around and say, oh look, I'm level 29, look how long I've tried. In one of the trailers they do actually say, oh, you can see that this person's level 29 or 30, they've tried really hard to get that armor. And to be honest, you don't really try hard. At the current state the game is in, people have been exploiting glitches and bugs. For example, there's a loot cave in one of them that is called the Magic Cave. I think it's just got patched. However, people just been standing outside, they're shooting in the spawn, and then they just run across and get the weapons. And that's what this game really boils down to after level 20. The rewards for bosses and the rewards for strikes afterwards, sometimes you don't even get rewards, even for PvP as well. It's all done on a random loot generation. It's just done by like a roll of the dice. That's the worst way you can do it. If you got 50 kills and the other person got 10, you would think theoretically you would get the better piece of equipment, but you don't. Sometimes you don't get anything, the other person gets the rarest thing in the game. It's a really bad system, and I don't think they're going to change it, but they have to.
Well, they have changed some things. There is a patch that is coming out for the game. Again, we can't review it based on this because it hasn't come out yet. But the patch is will address one issue, and that is the engrams. So the engrams are basically, for all intents and purposes, blueprints that you pick up. So anything that's dropped above a green by an enemy, so again, standard progression, white, green, blue, purple, and yellow, which isn't legendary, it's exotic. So anything that you pick up above a blue is essentially a blueprint. Now what you do is you have to take that blueprint to the tower, to the Cryptarch. Now the Cryptarch will decrypt the blueprint, and depending on your level with the Cryptarch, so again, you do have to level them up, and you will be picking up multiple things, so it is quite easy to level them up to a reasonable standard. That will depend on what the item is that you get. Now, if you're getting a blue engram at the moment, that can roll to either a green, which is
can even roll to a white.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it can. I read up online that it can.
So,
which stunts like your progression, doesn't it? Because
absolutely.
You're working so hard to get these things, and that's if you're playing the game properly. When you're going through all these hard bosses and really trying to get something rare, and then you get a purple engram after about 4 hours, and you go and get it. Decrypted or whatever by this decrypt arc person, and it turns out to be a blue. It's a really it does annoy you.
Yeah, I mean it is very difficult. I mean, because like I said, yeah, you get a purple engram that will drop and you think, great, legendary, and then you go to decrypt it and it's a blue, so it's a very big detractor. Now the new patch that's coming out is addressing that, so anything that you get will be at least the level of the colour that it is. So if you pick up a blue, it's going to be at least a blue, potentially a purple, and apparently, you know, what the drop rate is for this, I don't know, but if you get a blue, you now have more chance of getting a purple, and likewise, when you have a purple, you've got more chance of getting a yellow, which is the exotic, which at the moment is the rarest items that you can get. Now, whilst that's all good, they have also nerfed the loot cave, and they've really tried to stop people kind of grinding in kind of more economic ways. But the problem with this is there's so little progression once you've reached level 20 and once you've completed the story, that there's really no point. There's no mini games, there's nothing else that you can go and busy yourself doing. It's literally just playing strike quests or do PvP.
We started inventing minigames like sparrow racing.
Yeah. Why, Bungie, why is there no sparrow racing? Some of the levels are really well designed, and you can tell that they've got paths which you're supposed to put your sparrow through. They've got chicanes, they've got turns, they've got banks.
Ramps and stuff, yeah.
Make a sparrow minigame. Potentially, maybe we've driven the Fallen back from a planet and we've kind of reclaimed that. Have a Sparrow Racing League. It's not too much to ask for. I'm sure the coding side of things wouldn't be that complex, and it would just add so much to the game, because with it trying to be so many different things, it has failed at a fundamental level to be an FPS and MMO because it has no mini-games.
It has no kind of... There are side quests to the games, but they're very repetitive, like we've been through the 3 different types, and it just... There's nothing aside from shooting things. You can't do anything except for a few random footballs which are misplaced completely in the tower, which have this weird gravity on them, so they kind of stay in the air.
I think they're more balloons. But when you hit them, it makes a thud sound, which is very, very odd. And again, the sound is normally great on this game, but it does kind of let itself down on that. So one of the other things that I felt was a big letdown of the game was some of the AI design. Now the enemy type design. Now the AI itself is very good. Enemy design isn't great, and again, you know, there is a bit of bias towards this because I dislike Halo so much, and I think the enemy types do look like they've been taken straight out of the Halo playbook.
Some of them do look like that, but I mean, it is the same graphical team, I think, which did produce it, so you can understand that. But
absolutely, you know, I expect a level of kind of familiarity, as it were, with the characters. There's one enemy type in particular called the Servitor, which is essentially a big purple orb that shoots purple stuff at you through essentially what is its eye, and that is it. I mean, it's just the laziest design I have seen on an enemy. I mean, you've spent 500 million on this. You obviously haven't spent any money on the story, and then you go and spend very little on the enemy design. I just think that's unforgivable.
That being said, though, there are some really decent enemy designs. There's especially in the moon. One of the bosses in the moon, you can see it in the trailer, is chained up, and that's probably one of the best designs. The boss.
That was probably. I would argue that's actually probably the best bit of the game, and
that was a really good boss.
You know, I think that and where you first meet the Vex. I think that's probably the 2 best bits of the game, purely because it's those are the 2. I wouldn't even call it a wow moment, but they're the 2 bits where, you know, that do stick out. And that's another problem with this. There's very few memorable moments.
Yeah, there's like for example, you want to play on a game and kind of sit there and be immersed and go, wow, that just happened. That never happens in this game. I'm going to be honest, that never happened for me. The only time I said wow is when it loaded quicker than 10 seconds.
Yeah, and you know, that's a very big problem. I mean, I remember when I was playing the very first Borderlands game and the Rat Hive came out, and I was, that's a boss, you know. Or Borderlands 2, if we're going to, you know, that one where you've got, you know, the Destroyer. Is it the Destroyer? It's not the Destroyer, it's the Warrior.
Oh, right,
warrior.
yeah, the warrior.
That looks like an end boss. The end boss of this game, I'm not going to spoil it to say what it is, but it is a big letdown.
Basically, after it happened, I honestly did say, is that it? Was that it? I think we was even on headset to each other, we was playing in the same room, we normally do that with games, and I think we both just turned around and said, no way can that be the end. And it was, and I don't know if it's for DLC later on, I really hope it's not, because I don't know what they can expand on the story, because there's not really a story. But that does come to one massive problem with this game. The game does have a story, and people will argue this as well, and it does have a story, and you can find out especially what all these things are, like the Traveller and the Ghost and why you've been brought back. However, it's all accessed via something called the Grimoire system. I'm sure that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
And you collect these Grimoire cards in the game, which is a really cool way of another kind of progression system to learn more about the lore of the world. However, the only way to access this is through a companion app on your phone, or on a general PC or Mac or internet kind of thing. You cannot access it on the game, which is the most pointless thing I've ever thought of, because people, I know they're expected to have internet, but you don't want to go onto your computer and start looking about the lore of it on these little cards. You should be able to access it in your game.
And that's a very valid point, and I think the problem with this is that some of the Grimoire cards actually grant you bonuses within the game.
Really bad,
so there's one which gives you basically double the amount of resources. So if you see some spin metal on Earth, or if you see some relic shards on Mars, you can actually get a chance to get twice the amount of that from the same source, which is really good, because that's, you know, once you get legendary weapons, you start having to use your resources to level your weapons up. And
the thing is, if you know that, if you know it's going to do that, that gives you a reason to grind. It actually gives you this reason to actually do something, but you're never told what these Grimoire cards do. I was searching online after a week, like, what do these do? And then I realised they granted bonuses, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, the bonuses overall aren't fantastic for them, and I think there's a lot more that could be done with them. And I think the problem is, because I was trying to wrap my head around why Bungie, of all of the companies, haven't incorporated this properly into the game menu structure. And I was thinking, is it because they want to drive traffic to their website? But if that's the case, and they wanted to know how many people are looking at the website, or how many people are interested in Destiny, it's an online only game. You're going to have that data anyway, because people are already in the game. So for me, I can't see a logical reason as to why it hasn't been integrated in the game, and I wouldn't be surprised if 2-3 months down the line we see a patch that brings that in, because that is what Bungie need to do.
I think it will 100% will be in the game. I think I think a lot of other people have realised this as well. This is a system which could have been so much better. There's other games which have done it, like Borderlands, for example, with the badass ranks and stuff like that. And it's a really good system to have in a game. However, you cannot access it, and you can on the internet, but if you could on the game, it would be a lot more immersive in that way. And if you really wanted to learn about the lore, you can do a little bit more. Yes, it should be explained better in the story. However, you can't access it on the game, which means you can't learn about it unless you go and check it out on a PC or on your companion app, which isn't bad actually. The companion app, I have it, and it's actually pretty decent to use, and the system, how it all works, is really good, but it should be in the game 100%, and it will be, I guarantee. It will definitely 100%.
I'm going to place a $5 on that right now. 5 of my finest British pounds are going on that right now, so if Bungie want to screw me out some money, then feel free. I'd say one of the other things I was, again, I just felt let down with is that once you complete the game, once you're level 20, you've completed the story, and you're thinking, great, what's next? Because one of the things that Bungie have said is that once you've reached level 20, once you've completed the story, the game has only just started. And I kind of see what they were going for with that. Now what will happen is, once you reach level 20, and there's other things that you can unlock past level 20 as well, is you unlock the strike missions. Now the strike missions are probably the most fun things to do in the game, I would argue. Which is where you're set in a fire team.
Another word for party, by the way, fire team party.
Which can only max out as 3, because again there's 3 classes, so it's set to match that. Now with that being said, it will actually matchmake for you. So if you're playing by yourself, it will automatically put another 2 players with you, which is a really good thing because it really drives that kind of co-op ethos behind it, and you really do need those extra players for the strike missions, because you can get some incredibly difficult missions on there.
The strike missions, like you said, the strike missions are the most fun, but they're the most challenging. Later on, when you start doing level 26 strikes, and especially the Nightfall strikes, they're the hardest strikes in the game. They have really hard debuffs and buffs for the enemy. The bosses are essentially bullet sponges. They take so long to kill, and effectively the tactics don't change on any of the bosses. It's basically they've just got more health. And
it really is. Find cover, pop out from cover, unload your clip, go back into cover, heal someone if they're down, and it's really kind of a rinse and repeat strategy for these. But the main problem with the strike ones is that you're thinking, great, these are extra missions, you're going to be sent off to extra planets, you're going to be sent to see new enemies. Maybe this will even explain a little bit more about the story. It's not. What the strike missions are, if you haven't seen anything about them, the strike missions are just the story missions repeated over a party of 3 and the difficulty increase. Any of the story missions which have a definitive end boss are set up as strike missions, of which there are 5 in total, and that is it. Yeah, it's 5. There's only 5 strike missions, believe it or not. And if that is what you have to do, the grinds, to get any kind of decent loot, it becomes very repetitive, and that is a big problem.
And one thing about this, MMOs, when you play an MMO, for example Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft or something, when you kill a boss, you get loot. This game, bosses don't drop loot. You get loot at the end of a strike, but you don't get loot off a boss. I've never heard of that on an MMO, let's say. You don't receive loot. The only thing you receive sometimes is like a bonus to Glimmer, which by the way is the game's currency, and it's not used at all.
Yeah, and this was another point. Now the game has a few different types of currency. Glimmer is essentially dollars, pounds. It's the basic principle of that. Now the things that you can use Glimmer for is when you're at low levels, you can buy guns with them. You can buy items from the Cryptart.
Yeah, spend all your money. That's basically the whole. Level 1 to 20, just buy as much as you can, because when you hit 20, you're not going to use your money.
No, absolutely not. The only things you use money for is leveling your weapons up, which uses a very small amount of Glimmer, and that's really about it. There's not a huge amount else that you actually physically buy.
Well, you can buy ships, and as we've already said, ships are just used as loading screens.
They're just cosmetic.
The only thing I could think of is, as a joke I said to Craig, if you bought a better ship, the loading times would be smaller.
Yeah, which we've tried it. It's not the case. Save your money. It's fine. But there's also a cap of how much Glimmer you can have, which is 25,000. Now, there's nothing that you can buy for anywhere near that much anyway, and it's a bit of a grind to get anything close to that. But yeah, Glimmer is almost pointless. There are other things which you can be used to purchase things which are for legendary and exotic items. These are motes of light. There are also strange coins as well, which you can trade in with a character called Zur, who only appears, get this, on Fridays and Saturdays. Yeah. What a part-timer.
For people like... I'm a musician, so I play Fridays and Saturdays, so I'm not really on Destiny on Fridays and Saturdays that much. I stream a lot in the week, but on Friday and Saturdays, I'm not really here. So I've got this bounty which I need to go to this guy.
Yeah.
This special guy who comes around. You can buy exotic gear and stuff off him, but he only appears on Friday and Saturdays, and that's quite restrictive, especially if you're not on the game on them times.
Yeah, and I think that's a bit of an issue as well, is that these are the best weapons of the game, but you have to be here on two days a week, and that's it. And I think, everyone works at different times. I mean, I work 9 to 5. You work evenings, so it does become very difficult to coordinate kind of with your friends who's going to be on and who's going to be not. And I know because it's a game that's designed as a multiplayer game, I know that if Haz or any of my other friends that I play with aren't online, I'm probably not going to go on, even if it's to see this guy, just for 5 minutes. It's a bit of an effort to turn it on, and because I feel like, I kind of want to play it a bit, but I've got no one to play it with, so it does detract from that.
To me, this is the biggest negative of Destiny, but it's also a positive, is that it's a co-op game. It is through and through a co-op game. There's no way you can really play this solo. I know people will say they can get through the story solo, which is true. However, if you go down on some of the harder levels, you like respawn back at the start and stuff. It is effectively a co-op game. You need to be revived. There's no way you're going to go through some levels without dying, especially later on, and especially on your own. And Bungie have said this is a co-op game. This is effectively, they want it to be this big game you could share with friends and stuff, and that's what it is. I would say if you're going to play this game, try play it with friends. It is so much more fun because you won't be immersed in the story.
And I would say, absolutely, definitely play with your friends on this one. But there is also the chance to play PvP, which is in an area called the Crucible, which is again based in the tower. Now, the Crucible itself, if you're a first-person shooter fan, so you like Call of Duty, you like Battlefield, whatever your flavour might be, you can say, great, this has got PvP as well. I can shoot my friends in the face, which is always fun. Bit of a problem with this one is that any of the gear that you have. So a great sniper rifle, a legendary item, an exotic item, it will be completely nerfed because everyone's damage does the same, everyone's armor is the same. It's hard to explain. Basically, they balance the weapons out to everyone else's so that no one's really got an unfair advantage. I do see that it has to work in that way. I do see why it works in that way. But also, going from, I'm more into my PvE, and so are you. More the single player aspects, more not playing against people. However, going from PvE to PvP, there's no point because you spend 25 hours or something trying to get like this amazing gun, and you finally get it, and it's like really strong or something. Yeah. And there's no point of it in the PvP. Like, it doesn't really do anything different. Yeah, I mean, for example, I've got a legendary scout rifle level 20, and again, level 20 is the highest you can get your gear. I've almost maxed it out, so in terms of the damage output and all the special skills that it does, I've got that pretty much as far as I can get that. Someone can come along with a level 13 auto rifle and absolutely destroy me, and it shouldn't be that way at all because of the way it's set out. Now, I understand they want to make it fair so that if you're a newbie coming in there, that you're not going to be absolutely blitzed. I mean, you probably will be because all the other kids will be familiar with the maps. But that being said, I do feel that, if you've spent the time to get these amazing weapons, why not be able to use them? Why can't we have, people only from level 20 to 22 on this map, people from 23 to 24 on this map, etc., etc. There's enough people that are playing the game. I really don't understand why it's not structured in that way at all. It just, to me, just doesn't make sense.
A great thing about this game is how you can just run through missions. I know that doesn't sound that good, but when you've played the same mission a lot, you will be wanting to run through the missions just to get to the boss, just to get the loot at the end. And you can do that in some MMOs and stuff, but this does this thing to you. This game does the most annoying thing, and this is probably the worst thing to me about this game. Every single level, this is not a joke, has a defense horde section. Yeah. Your companion, the ghost, is basically the best door opener in the world. He can open any door, but it normally takes 3 waves and loads of monsters coming to get you. You effectively have to stand there. It's normally over 2 to 3 waves of constant enemies coming towards you, and you just have to shoot them. It's just a horde thing, but they do this sometimes 2, 3, or 4 times in a map, in a mission, and this is no joke. Every single level, I think, in this has a defense section.
Yeah, and that's just incredibly lazy by Bungie. I mean, there are so many other games, and yes, they are, and I'm also talking about first-person shooters in this section, that, they do have these modes, great, but they've got other modes as well. Stories are being told, characters are being developed, none of that is happening on this. You are just meaninglessly shooting enemies in the face, and that is it. That is the extent of that. You're basically standing there, making sure everyone's staying alive, killing wave after wave of enemy. And don't get me wrong, that's fun, but if that's the only thing that you're doing, it does grind on you.
You will spend 50% of the time of this game. I honestly think we spent about 75 to 90 hours doing door defense. I'm really not joking.
Yeah, and
you spend a lot on it.
I would probably say that's probably true. Yeah.
Every mission has it, and if you're one of these people who doesn't like horde sections like that and defense sections, you will not like this game. You can't just run through. I think there's probably one mission where you can, but I'm pretty sure every mission does have a defense side.
Yeah, I can't think of one without.
Yeah, and you just have to defend a door whilst your companion opens it, and it gets frustrating. That it came to points in the game where we hadn't even done the mission. We was halfway through the game, and we'd get to a point where it says we was coming up to a door, and we knew what was going to happen. We knew we'd be defending it for a little bit, and every time we was right, we knew we was going to defend, and it takes away so much of the game because you're kind of running through in this battle, and then you have to stop for 10 minutes or something. I think it was purposely put there to thicken out the game. I honestly think it was to...
Yeah, and I think if you took all the defense sections out, you could probably run through the story in about 4 hours. And that's not an exaggeration. It's a
short game.
And that's a big letdown. You know, I was very disappointed with that.
Bungie has released this thing called the Vault of Glass. It was a raid which was put onto the game, I think, a week after release. It's a very high level dungeon with a couple of bosses. We haven't completed it, I'll be honest now. We have attempted it and we have tried to go through it, and we'll explain why we haven't completed it in a second. As we don't have 5 friends who are constantly on the game at one time. I think us two are the only 2 out of our friends group who actually owns the game at the moment. And we really wanted to do this Vault of Glass, so we've been attempting it with 3 or 4 people, which is, any of you who have played it, it's hard. It's a really hard raid, and it's meant for 6 people. It's the only raid, the only dungeon in the game which has a 6-player limit. It says you have to be level 26, that's light level 26, to go in there. And we've tried it, and it's really, really hard, and it's really challenging, and it actually uses tactics, which is great. However, this comes to one of the worst things about this game as well, and I'll let Craig take this.
Oh yeah, so the worst the worst thing about the Vault of Glass is that it doesn't auto matchmake. You know, if you're on a strike mission or a strike playlist, it will automatically select it so that you have a full party, which is fine. The Vault of Glass is designed to be the ultimate challenge, releasing the ultimate reward for the game. However, it doesn't matchmake you, which means that you either have to find players in-game who are willing to do the Vault of Glass for you, or you have to have yourself and 5 other friends in order to complete it. Now, I don't know whether it's even possible to complete this without 6 people. I'm assuming if you're high enough level,
I think you can
probably get away with it. But you are going to be grinding at this thing for hours.
Yeah.
So make sure you've gone to the loo beforehand, because you will be needing it by the time you've finished.
Or just wait for a loading screen.
Yeah, all that. So it's great to have that challenge, but then to not offer you the assistance to be able to complete that, kind of really stunts that for me. You've done it for the strike missions. Do it for the Vault of Glass.
It is 99.999% impossible to do it on your own. There's no way you're going to be able to do it on your own, so you have to know 5 people to do this. And this comes to another flaw of the game. The social aspect of it is bad. You cannot really message, you can't voice chat to people in game. You can't. So unless you're in a strike team party with them. But when you go to the tower, which is the hub where all the players meet, which by the way are on little servers of only 16 players allowed to go in this, so you have to go into your PlayStation or Xbox One home and message them directly, which just takes time, and
it also takes you out of the game.
Yeah, it does take you out of the gameplay. I would love to sit there and just talk to people on the chat and say, does anyone want to try the Vault of Glass, because we haven't been able to do it. We got to the first boss and we couldn't do it because it's just too hard with 3 people or 4 people. It's a really tough thing which Bungie have not got right. The social aspect of this game is bad. It's trying to be an MMO at points as well, where you can wave to people, like do certain actions. You can wave, you can dance,
you can sit down,
which you've already seen in the videos, and you can do little things like that. But you can't actually talk to characters talk to other players in game, which causes you to kind of feel lifeless in an apparent multiplayer world. You can't talk to people, which makes it really tough. Recently, something called the Queen's Wrath has just come on as kind of like an optional mission, and basically you get sent out by one of the queen who you meet in the game at a really pointless location. You'll see it when you get there. You never can revisit this location, by the way, but anyway, this queen gets you to go out and do the story missions again, not new missions, just complete the same missions, and then you get a piece of armor or something. I think it's just another way for them to thicken the gameplay, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, with the Queen's Wrath, you're almost guaranteed to get a legendary item out of it, which sounds great, but the legendary items are just a helmet, chest piece, and or a ship.
Yeah.
And that is literally it. So what if you've already got legendary gear, there is no point doing this. Now you may be thinking, well hang on, legendary gear, that can be dismantled to get you ascendant materials, which can then be used to upgrade other legendary items. That's no longer the case. Bungie has now officially patched that, so you cannot get Ascendant Shard or Ascendant materials from this at all. Now, if you don't have any legendary gear, I would recommend doing this until you've got a helmet and a chest piece.
It's easy.
Yeah,
it's
it's very easy to do. It may take you a couple of hours, but again, it will be worth it because legendary equipment isn't the easiest thing to come by. But once you've got that, that's literally the extent that you need to go into for that. Now, you do get a reputation with the Queen, which does build up and level up. Now, there is someone at the back of the tower at the moment, because it is a timed event, so by the time you've watched this, it may not even still be there. And you can actually trade in your reputation points from the Queen in order to purchase items. The problem is, none of this matters, because the only things that you can get which really make any kind of difference are shaders, which are purple. If you don't like purple, you're out of luck, and that is literally all that you can exchange it for. Oh wait, no, you can exchange it for rare weapons.
Which blue weapons, by the way.
Which, at the level that you would be to do the Queen's Wrath, you will already have.
Yeah, definitely. Another type of currency in this game are marks. You get Vanguard marks and Crucible marks, I think, at the moment. You gain these by doing certain bounties each day. They're regularly updated at 6 AM. That's GMT time, so I don't know about any other times. But these get updated each day, these bounties, and you go out and you do kind of grindy quests. It's kind of go and kill 200 people, basically.
Yeah, or melee kill 30 enemies without dying, etc.
And you get a reputation with the Vanguard, who is the owner of you.
Yeah, the Vanguard, again, it's not really explained in the game, but the Vanguard are basically the
military.
Yeah, they're the military. They're the MOD essentially of of that. So you will report to the Vanguard of your class, so the Titan Vanguard, the Warlock Vanguard, etc. So and from there you can get legendary items if you have enough marks. But first of all, you need to level up your reputation, which takes a long time.
Yeah.
So you are doing these bounty missions and you've completed them all for the day. Great, you can't get any more points. Now you can get some more points by doing the daily heroic quest, the weekly heroic quest, or by completing patrol missions. But again, the rewards for these are minimal. So again, you are having to grind and do these missions over and over and over again. And these missions themselves offer very little to no variation in what they're asking you to do at all. So you really are grinding for the sake of getting a piece of armour, a weapon to grind more.
Yeah, it's the same with the PvP. The PvP, you gain reputation for doing the bounties in the PvP world. For example, you'll have to kill each of the classes in PvP without dying yourself, and then you get experience and you get reputation towards the Crucible. The Crucible, then you can buy items when your reputation's high with them. However, it takes, to get to level 3 of the reputation, it takes 9,000 reputation. I don't know if some reputation marks, but reputation. And what happens is, to get 3,000 is quite tricky. You have to really, the bounties I think only give you about 150 each one you do. So imagine you only get 5 a day. It's going to take you quite a while to get there. I think I'm almost level 3 on the Vanguard reputation, but we've done a lot of public quests. Is that what they're called, public quests?
Yeah, so there's random public events which will drop, I think it's about every 40 to 45 minutes. So the public missions are basically random events that happen on a certain planet. They drop generally around 45 minutes, and again they encourage everyone to join in on this little event, for the short time that it's there, which is great unless you're the only person that actually bothers with it.
It's great in practice, but because the servers are so small for each map, but the maps are big, I think you can have 16 players on each map, and some of the maps are very big. You've got underground segments, overworld segments, so the chance of actually getting a few players in is quite minimal.
Yeah.
And when you eventually do one of these really difficult public quests, because in all honesty, you could be up against a level 4 and you'd be level 28 and you would think, great, I'm going to really destroy this person. It somehow makes him as strong as you, and it just really defeats the purpose of it. However, the purpose of it is for loads of people to join together and take out this one enemy, which is great in theory, but it's not, because there's not enough people to do it.
Yeah, and the problem is that it's very limited. There's two types. There's a defense one, which, oh look, isn't that the same thing we've done the whole story?
Yeah. Where
a satellite will drop down, you have to defend that.
Yeah.
The other type is there is a mark, so an enemy that has dropped down who will be very, very difficult. They will be armoured and they will have a shield which will almost instantly recharge unless it has constant fire upon it, who basically has to reach checkpoints, and then once it reaches the final checkpoint, will get beamed up to a ship and it's escaped. Now the rewards for the public events are actually quite good, because you get Ascendant Shards, you get Reputation, and you get Glimmer, as useless as Glimmer is. However,
if you're farming Reputation, you get 10 Reputation per public event, and for 45 minutes for waiting for it, 10 Reputation out of 3,000 is bad. It's a long time.
You do the math, yeah.
And I think that's what they wanted. They wanted people to grind this, because that's effectively what after level 20 is. It's just grinding the same mission. 5 missions of the strikes and stuff. It does take its time. It does take its time, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
In PvP, there are some clans you can join in PvP. You go and buy a legendary cape from them, and then you earn reputation in the PvP area for that type of clan. I think there's 4 different types of clans. I'm not heavily into the PvP, but I saw the clans around and had a look into them. And then you could buy certain weapons and stuff, even though the weapons are pretty much the same throughout each clan.
Yeah, because all the weapons are level 20. They're all legendary, so they
all do a max of 300 damage, and they all do the same thing.
Yeah, so really, your alliance to a clan really, you can align yourself with any of the clans. You're going to get the same gear essentially.
Yeah. And most of the models look the same. Like, you can have a blue weapon which will look exactly the same as a legendary. I mean, exactly the same. It's the exact same model of how it looks, and it kind of just takes away the purpose of getting a special weapon, because then it doesn't feel significant. It doesn't feel yours if it's exactly the same as a blue or green weapon, for example.
And one thing that you can do on the game is you can find these things called colour shaders or armour shaders, which will change all of your armour into a uniform colour scheme, which is great. Very, very rare to find them, and normally you have to use either Motes of Light or online download codes in order to get anything that looks anything different. But again, these don't apply to your guns, so your guns will be the colour that the guns are. The guns are the guns are the guns.
Yeah.
There's no variety in that at all, and I think that's a big shame. I think you should be able to customise your guns, you should be able to customise your army, you should be able to customise your ship. You can't, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. There's not a lot of variation to the weaponry at all in this game, and I think that is a bad point to it. So bad, because there could have been so much more in the weaponry. There had to have been. Like, the snipers all feel the same, I think. I play with snipers a lot, and they all mainly feel the same. Basically what you want is just the one with the most ammo, because that's effectively what you're using. They all basically do the same damage when maxed out.
Yeah, the stats between weapons there's hardly any change. I mean, a shotgun will do the same amount of damage and the same amount of recoil as the next shotgun. It really is the only difference is the magazine size, or maybe what elemental type. And the elemental types
are not explained.
Really, they're not explained, and they don't seem to have really any impact on the enemies.
You get enemies with different colour shields, which is actually the element which you should be shooting them with. So if one's got a blue shield, I'm pretty sure you have to shoot him with an ice gun, and when he's got a red shield, you shoot him with a fire gun. That's kind of what they went for. But this is not explained at all once. There's no tutorials to this game. There's nothing to explain anything about the game. Maybe in the Grimoire section, but yet again, you can't access that unless you go on the internet.
Yeah.
That's our good points and bad points of Destiny. We feel that the game has so much potential and it's got a lot going for it. But we're going to wrap this up now with our final analysis and final score of the game. The problem with this game, I think, is it's trying to be something that it's not. It's trying to be so many different things and it's kind of confused on what it's trying to be. It's got so many different elements but they just don't come together properly. It's not gluing together like it should be. And I think a problem with this is that it's too easy as well to get up to the level cap, and I know they said they wanted to do that, but that takes away the whole MMO part, and then you're grinding. It can get really frustrating. This game is a grind fest, I think.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think for me, Bungie, optimistically kind of put out kind of a mission statement, and I really feel it's fallen short of a lot of the promises that it's made. Now, it's not to say it's a bad game, because it's not, but again, there's far too many wasted opportunities on this game. There's so much scope that they could have done, and maybe they still will. I mean, Bungie have openly said there's a 10-year plan for the game, so there is going to be further content that's coming out, and whether that's going to be free, whether you have to pay for that, whether that's going to be a Destiny 2, we don't know. So, from what we do know is that you are going to have to pay for some of the DLC, but there's also some free stuff they're going to be doing as well, and some limited time events. So, the longevity of it remains to be seen. But for me, it's fallen short of its promises as an RPG, as an MMO. But it has lived up to itself as a first-person shooter. I feel, minus the story. Yeah, I mean, this game. If you're looking at buying this game, get it with a friend. 100% play it with a friend, and you will have a lot of fun playing it if you're into shooting, if you're into FPSs or RPGs. I guess it is a good game, but I want to love it more, but I just can't, because I did get sucked into this. I thought it was going to be such a big RPG, but it's not. It's an FPS with RPG elements and MMO elements. There's no social side really to it. It just falls short on things which it shouldn't have fell short on. This game is not bad in any way. It's a great game. The gunplay, the world, the lore, everything's great in it, but it's just not implemented right. It's not done right. It's not gluing together. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, not for the actual feel of the game, but in a way a lot of the gameplay aspects are implemented. It feels like a beta test. And Destiny and Bungie have already said, we're listening to you, we're going to be making changes. And that's great, but for me, I've already had my fill. I'm 150 hours into the game. I don't really think I'm going to be investing that much more into it. I think I'd have to wait until substantial changes are made, or substantial additional content comes in, before I will probably look to play it at any kind of length again. I think what we'd do is review it when the DLC comes out. I know they've got 2 big packs coming out for the DLC, which expands the story and areas and everything. Well, I don't know how it's going to expand the story, because I came away from the game, in all honesty, not really realising what happened. I sat there and was just confused on what actually happened. But this game is good fun. The gunplay, everything is really good to play. This game does have a 10-year game plan apparently, and I think over the course of time this game will grow into something bigger, but this review is on what it's been released as. It's a great game. It's a good game. I'm not going to say great. No, it's a good game, but it has some great elements, but it also has some really poor elements, which does drag the game experience down. It really takes you out of the game, like the poorly implemented systems it should have had at launch. I think this game, we have gave it 6 out of 10. Yeah, and I think that's a fair representation. I think, given the changes that Bungie have said they're going to make, that score is probably likely to increase, but again, as it stands, I think a 6 out of 10 is a justified and a fair score. I think, what they do well, they do really well. What they do bad, they do really bad. Really lets them down, and I think there's a big discrepancy between the two. As such, I can't give it anything higher than that.
Yeah, this game is a good game if you're going to play it co-op. It's a great blast to have. We played on it to 150 to 200 hours, which is a lot to play. And you've seen some gameplay and you can make up your own mind. However, we are giving it a 6 out of 10 and we have enjoyed playing it. Thank you so much for tuning into the WD Show. My name's Haz, this is Craig. It's been fantastic for you to listen. Tune in next time and we will be reviewing some more games.